Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to another book review from me, your humble narrator, Logan Albright. Today I'm talking about The Demon Lover by Dion Fortune. Now, this is the third novel that I've read by Dion Fortune. She was an English occultist in the early to mid 20th century. I find her writing on occultism very interesting and insightful and clear. I think she is one of the most interesting and best occultists around, although she's no longer around. But I love her work. I think it's really great. And she was also a writer of fiction. And this is the third book that I've read by her. I'm reading it for my pagan book club that I go to once a month. This is actually her debut novel, and it came out in 1927. And the other two books I read by her were The Goatfoot God and what was the other book I read? Oh yeah, The Sea Priestess. The Goatfoot God and The Sea Priestess, both of which I've reviewed on this channel. And they're okay. I like this one better. This is a little bit more plot driven, and the others are a little bit, they kind of have a similar plot about a man meeting a mysterious and beautiful woman and going off and doing magic together. And they're a little dull, I find. This one is her debut novel. It's a little bit more plot driven, and it's about a young woman named Veronica who gets drawn into the influence and web of a sinister occultist named Lucas, who wants to use her as kind of a medium, a trance medium for his dark purposes. And it's a little bit more, things happen in it a little bit more, which I find more interesting. Also, it deals with a lot of archetypes, and it deals with a lot of like traditional classical story forms and ideas, which I like. It's easy to kind of, write that off as clichéd or trite or kind of, tired narrative devices in our modern age because they've been used so much, but they work and they're there for a reason. And I think there's a lot of kind of deep wisdom about the nature of the world embedded in these type of stories. The fundamental archetype that she's dealing with here, I think, is this relationship between men and women and how they relate to each other. And this is kind of a more controversial, perhaps, perspective today than it would have been 100 years ago when this book was written. But she's kind of dealing with the different roles that men and women play in each other's lives and this idea of polarity. There's a famous book in the realm of occultism called the Kybalion, which deals with a lot of these kind of archetypal principles, and it talks about the principle of polarity, where you have these two opposites that kind of pull in opposite directions, and you find balance in between them. And that's kind of how Dion Fortune is treating the two main characters in this book. She treats them as opposites that are unbalanced and incomplete without one another. And this is kind of how she views the masculine and feminine relationship. So the man is basically all mind and no heart, and the woman is basically all heart and no mind. And you need to have a balance between those two, which is a very Kabbalistic idea in Dion Fortune's book on the Kabbalah, called The Mystical Kabbalah, which is my favorite book on the Kabbalah, if you're interested in that subject. Very good, recommend. There's this idea of these three pillars. There's the pillar of severity on one side, the pillar of mildness on the other side, and the pillar of balance in the middle. And that's what I think she's getting at here. She mentions that justice without mercy is tyranny, and mercy without justice is weakness. And you need all these things balancing and coming together. And that's kind of the view of the relationship between the man and the woman. Another one of these themes that is explored a lot in the book is sort of this idea that the role of women is to kind of rein in and tame men. It's this Beauty and the Beast sort of idea, right? I was recently watching the Jean Cocteau film of the Beauty and the Beast, and I was listening to a scholar do an audio commentary on it, and he was talking about how this theme of Beauty and the Beast is so prevalent in like tons of fiction, like from anything like King Kong. 'Twas beauty killed the beast. There's a monster, and you need a woman to tame the monster and to bring civilization to the monster, and that's very much present here. It's very much an idea. And I remember seeing a video about the kind of top 10 categories of fantasies that women have, romantic fantasies that women have. And it's hilarious because it's all stuff like vampires, werewolves, pirates, billionaires. It's all like wild men, men who are kind of, living outside the acceptable bounds of society, and women are attracted to those men, and then they want to bring them into the fold and tame them and civilize them and make them respectable. And I think that's funny that it's like pirates and vampires and stuff like that. It's very amusing to think about, but it's apparently a real thing. So there's something deep psychologically and evolutionarily within us that I think is attracted to these kind of ideas, this sort of Beauty and the Beast notion of romance, and that's why it keeps cropping up in all kinds of fiction all over the place, and The Demon Lover is no exception. I will say right out that my problem with the book, because it's not a perfect book and it's a little bit trivial in certain ways, my problem with the book is that the male character is, I feel that his resolution is unearned. His redemption at the end of the book is unearned. The penance that he pays for his crimes, which are numerous and great, does not absolve him of all the horrible things that he's done, in my opinion. And I think that that could have been handled better in a way that would be a little bit more satisfying to readers, because I found a little hard to take the fact that he gets off a little bit easy after all the stuff that he's done. I didn't really like that. But the narrative is by and large a compelling one, and it deals with a lot of kind of occult themes. And I should mention that Dion Fortune was she's sort of a Christian occultist. I don't know that she was really a Christian, but she was influenced by Christianity to a much greater extent than her contemporaries were. And that kind of bleeds in here too. This idea of redemption, this idea of purgatory, this idea of kind of working through your sins and coming out the other side redeemed or reborn or cleansed in some way. That's kind of, resurrection and redemption and all that kind of, those Christian values are present in this book. And that's something you don't see in a lot of other occult books. But there's many other occult themes in here as well. There's this idea of these fraternity of secret chiefs who guard the occult secrets of the world and are charged with making sure that they're not misused. There's astral projection, there's reincarnation. There's the two main characters, much like in the film The Mummy, these two main characters are sort of linked by past lives that kind of brought them together in their present life. So that's a theme. There's transformation into, or transferring the soul into different places. There's hypnotism. There's the idea of the death of the personality, survival of bodily death, the death of the personality as opposed to just the body. These are all themes that are brought up. There's a little bit of vampirism and werewolfism in the book as well. A lot of very interesting subjects if you're into that kind of fantastical writing, but all grounded in a very scholarly and well-researched approach to occultism that Dion Fortune was a master of, because she knew what she was talking about. I will say on the back of this book, this edition I have was published by Wiser Books, who are a very good publisher of books on occultism and witchcraft and things like that. This edition on the back, it says, before there was Stephanie Meyer, before there was Anne Rice, there was Dion Fortune. And that really annoys me, because I don't like when publishers are using like modern trash writing as a hook to kind of get people to read classics. I think that's kind of cheesy. It's like when they put Keira Knightley on the cover of Pride and Prejudice, try to hook people with a movie adaptation. I have too much respect for Dion Fortune to compare her writing to Stephanie Meyer or Anne Rice, even though her novel writing is not, of the highest or deepest caliber. I did enjoy the book. I think it's a fun one. I think it's a little bit more action-packed and a little bit more gripping than the other books I mentioned, The Goatfoot God and The Sea Priestess. It's not, it's not a work of great literature, but if you're interested in Dion Fortune's writing and you're interested in her thoughts on occultism in general, a lot of her occult thoughts are contained in her fiction writing in a possibly slightly more accessible and approachable way than to her nonfiction books. So that's basically my thoughts on The Demon Lover, Dion Fortune's first novel. Quite enjoyable, not an amazing work of literature, but a lot of fun if you're into that sort of thing. That's what I have to say about it, and I'll be back again next week with another book review for your viewing pleasure. If you have read Dion Fortune's work, both her nonfiction and her fiction, love to know about it in the comments. Let me know what you think. I have another book by her that I have not yet read called Moon Magic. I'll probably get to that at some point, so let me know if you've read that. Always interested to hear what you have to say. And then, of course, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, all the stuff you're supposed to do. I've been your host, Logan Albright. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.